Welcome to Economic Fallout. Today we delve into a critical issue that threatens global economic stability, the escalating global debt crisis. With public debt levels soaring to unprecedented heights, are we on the brink of an economic collapse? Let's explore this complex issue in depth. This video is for informational and educational purposes only, and should not be considered financial advice. Always consult a professional before making investment or financial decisions. The magnitude of global debt. As of early 2025, the world has accumulated approximately $100 trillion in public debt, a figure that has alarmed economists and policymakers alike. This surge is attributed to increased government spending in response to crises such as the COVID-19 pandemic, geopolitical tensions, and economic slowdowns. Notably, since the onset of the pandemic, over $24 trillion has been added to global government debt balances. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, has expressed concerns that higher interest rates are making debt repayment more expensive, exacerbating the fiscal challenges faced by many nations. IMF Deputy Chief Geeta Gopinath highlighted that unforeseen events like financial crises or pandemics have often led to actual debt levels exceeding forecasts by significant margins. In the United States, the fiscal deficit surpassed 6% of GDP in 2024 and is projected to rise to 8% or more in 2025, indicating a troubling trend in fiscal management. These figures underscore the urgency of addressing the burgeoning debt to prevent potential economic instability. Contributing factors to the debt surge. Several key factors have contributed to the rapid increase in global debt. Government borrowing. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, many governments implemented substantial fiscal stimulus packages to support their economies. While necessary, this led to significant increases in public debt. For instance, the United States introduced multiple relief packages totaling over $5 trillion, significantly impacting its national debt. Rising interest rates. To combat inflation, central banks worldwide have raised interest rates. While this helps control inflation, it also increases the cost of servicing existing debt. The U.S. Federal Reserve, for example, has implemented several rate hikes, leading to higher borrowing costs globally. Economic policies. Certain fiscal policies, such as tax cuts without corresponding spending reductions, have widened fiscal deficits. The IMF warns that such policies could escalate federal deficits by trillions of dollars, further exacerbating the debt situation. These factors, among others, have collectively contributed to the current debt landscape, raising concerns about fiscal sustainability. Impact on developing nations. Developing countries are particularly vulnerable to the escalating debt crisis. A record 54 lower-income countries are currently spending more on debt repayments than at any time in the last 3 decades. Many of these nations, including several in southern Africa, are allocating more funds to debt servicing than to essential services like education and health. For example, Zimbabwe is in the midst of a complicated debt restructuring process, with significant portions of its budget directed toward debt repayments. This situation hampers the country's ability to invest in critical public services and infrastructure, thereby affecting its socio-economic development. The rising debt burden in these countries threatens their socio-economic stability, making it imperative to address this issue through comprehensive debt relief and restructuring initiatives. Potential consequences of the debt crisis. If the escalating global debt remains unaddressed, several potential consequences could ensue. Economic recession. High debt levels can stifle economic growth, leading to recessions. The increased cost of debt servicing diverts funds from productive investments, thereby slowing economic activity. Financial instability. Elevated debt levels heighten the risk of defaults, which can trigger financial market turmoil. The interconnectedness of global financial systems means that a default in one country can have ripple effects worldwide. Reduced public services. Governments may be compelled to cut essential services to manage debt, affecting healthcare, education, and infrastructure. This can lead to social unrest and deteriorating public welfare. Recent developments have further highlighted the urgency of addressing the global debt crisis. U.S. foreign aid freeze. President Donald Trump's decision to freeze U.S. foreign aid pending a 90-day review has raised concerns about the potential impact on poorer countries heavily reliant on aid. This move could plunge these nations into deeper debt crises by interrupting crucial programs and destabilizing them socially and financially. France's fiscal challenges. France's Public Audit Office has indicated that the country can no longer afford to delay fiscal tightening. Following a political crisis that led to increased spending and a drop in tax income, France faces a ballooning public debt. The government aims to reduce the deficit from 6% to 5.4% of output, but specific plans for the required spending cuts remain vague. Corporate debt concerns. Companies like Sir Jim Ratcliffe's Ineos Group are facing financial uncertainty, as their debt levels reach significant heights. Credit rating agencies have downgraded their outlooks for the company, indicating potential financial instability. This reflects a broader concern that corporate debt, especially in highly leveraged industries, could become a ticking time bomb if global economic conditions worsen. The future outlook. What's next for the global economy? So, what does the future hold? Will governments take action, or are we heading toward another debt-driven financial crisis? IMF predictions. The International Monetary Fund warns that if no corrective measures are taken, global public debt could exceed 115% of GDP by 2030, creating long-term economic instability. They stress the need for governments to pursue fiscal consolidation, meaning better budgeting and spending control. Central bank strategies. Many central banks are caught in a dilemma. If they raise interest rates further to control inflation, it increases government borrowing costs, but if they lower rates, inflation may spiral again. The U.S. Federal Reserve, ECB, and Bank of England have all signaled cautious approaches to rate adjustments in 2025 to avoid worsening debt burdens. Possible debt crises in 2025 to 2026. China's real estate market. Analysts fear China's property sector, which has already seen Evergrande and Country Garden collapse, could trigger a broader financial crisis. U.S. debt ceiling debates. Ongoing political conflicts over raising the debt ceiling may create economic uncertainty and market volatility. Emerging market defaults. Countries like Argentina, Pakistan, and Egypt face the risk of defaulting on external loans unless financial aid or restructuring agreements are secured. What this means for you. Governments may introduce higher taxes or spending cuts to manage debt, affecting public services. Markets could become volatile, impacting investments, retirement accounts, and business growth. Interest rates may stay high, making mortgages, loans, and credit more expensive for individuals and businesses. What can be done? Solutions to the global debt crisis. Despite the alarming figures, there are solutions, if leaders act decisively. Here are the main strategies being discussed by economic experts and institutions. Debt restructuring and forgiveness. The G20 Common Framework is working on debt relief programs for struggling nations. However, progress has been slow, and many countries remain on the brink. China, as the largest lender to developing countries, has been under pressure to renegotiate debts instead of seizing national assets as collateral. Public spending reforms. Governments must focus on spending efficiently rather than cutting essential services. Reducing wasteful expenditures and subsidy misallocations can free up funds for essential economic growth initiatives. Tax reforms for sustainable revenue. Countries with high deficits may need to increase tax compliance rather than raising tax rates. The OECD's global minimum corporate tax of 15%, aimed at preventing tax avoidance by multinational companies, could generate billions in revenue for struggling nations. Economic growth and innovation. Investing in technology, infrastructure, and renewable energy can drive economic expansion, creating higher revenues to manage debt without austerity measures. AI and automation could improve productivity and efficiency, boosting GDP without requiring excessive government borrowing. How you can protect your finances amidst a debt crisis. Now, let's talk about what you can do as an individual to protect your wealth and financial stability in an uncertain economic environment. Diversify your investments. Avoid putting all your money in one asset class. Consider gold, inflation-protected bonds, tips, and defensive stocks to safeguard against market volatility. Keep an emergency fund. With rising uncertainties, having 6 to 12 months of expenses saved can help you navigate tough financial periods. Minimize high-interest debt. If interest rates stay high, carrying credit card debt or variable rate loans could become increasingly expensive. Stay informed and plan ahead. Monitor inflation trends, policy changes, and central bank decisions to make better financial choices. Economic downturns create opportunities for savvy investors. Buy assets at discounted prices and position yourself for long-term growth once the economy stabilizes. Conclusion. Where are we headed? To summarize today's discussion, global debt has surpassed $100 trillion, with record-high government borrowing and interest rate pressures. Developing nations are particularly vulnerable, spending more on debt servicing than on public services. Major economies like the US, China, and the EU face increasing fiscal challenges, with potential market volatility ahead. Economic downturns, stagflation risks, and debt restructuring are major concerns for 2025 to 2026. While the risks are real, history has shown that economies can recover if the right policies are implemented. But will world leaders take the right steps in time? Or are we heading toward another 2008-style financial meltdown? What do you think? Will the global debt crisis lead to a recession, or can we avoid it? What policies should governments implement to prevent collapse? Let's discuss in the comments below. If you found this video valuable, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on the latest economic trends. It helps us bring you more in-depth research and analysis. Protect your wealth. Protect your family. Stay prepared. This is Paul for the Economic Fallout.